All right, everybody, we're going to march through this lecture here, World War I, the war to end all wars. What you want to do on your Cornell Notes page is anything in white that's underlined, you want to write that down to the right of this line here under Notes. Anything that's in blue, the right to the left. So the blue is actually going to, you can still include headings and vocab and questions in there, but please, the stuff in blue, put it on the left-hand side of the line. The stuff underlined in white, put on the right-hand side of the line. Don't forget to add your name to this activity. We already got the topic on there for you. And the essential question, what were the main causes of World War I? We're going to get through the M, the A, the I, and the N. We're actually going to do them out of order because that's how they appear on this PowerPoint. I am not going to read the slides to you every time verbatim. You can see them for yourself. You can stop the video as you need it. And we're going to go through this and get your notes done. This will be awfully helpful when it comes to your big assessment for this unit, which is writing the DBQ. This will provide a great deal of context, some background, and some additional understanding for the DBQ, where the D in the DBQ, the documents, will be used to prove your answer. This is kind of the general information so you understand where it's going. The documents will provide factual backup for what the lecture here is describing. All right, World War I. It's unnecessary, it's tragic. As you can see from this graveyard in Germany, this largest German military cemetery of 40,000 young men are buried, probably mostly young men. Some of them might have been older men. Some of them might have been boys. Maybe got a few women in there too. Regardless, they're all people. And they all lost their lives because of this war. And we're going to look at the causes of it. So as you grow and grow into productive members of society, hopefully voting productive members of society, you can keep things like World War I in mind when selecting your future politically. This is what school's all about. It's what social studies is all about, is being wise. Well, it's a cause and effect situation. And World War I, more than most, could be viewed as a situation of dominoes falling. And it's been said that no one saw this coming except for everyone saw it coming, because it was pretty clear that the world was steamrolling right towards war. But they didn't understand the gravity and the magnitude and the ferocity of the weapons developed in this conflict. And by the early 20th century, the great powers of Europe, that's Britain, France, Germany, Austria-Hungary, and Russia, were all racing. They all were in a competition to build up the biggest militaries with each other. You got the main causes: militarism, alliances, imperialism, nationalism. In order. We're going to present them out of order here. And the first one is imperialism. This will go on the left side of your line on your notes page, imperialism, and on the right side, right next to it, one way European powers tried to become stronger was by building empires. So you don't need to write the entire thing down unless you desperately feel the need, but you definitely want to put building empires down on your paper. They're going to control colonies, and they're going to be all over the world. And these colonies were there to make money, supply raw materials like lumber, like mineral wealth. And there's also a place to sell your finished products. It is a true success story of imperialism if you can get the native people in the colony, in the area you took over with your military strength, to harvest and mine and chop down all the raw materials they could. And you take them by ship back to your country and you sell them, and you process them in a factory into finished products, and you turn around and you sell them right back to those people that got them for you in the first place at a profit. That's imperialism. Think of the empire in Star Wars. You're going to grow and expand and take over smaller, weaker places. Like in this picture, we've got a caricature of Napoleon and a caricature of a British officer, and they're carving up the world with two-pronged forks and gigantic knives, wearing makeup. We have a world map, a world of empires, as you can see by color, although France and Spain look awfully similar, that these European countries had colonies all around the world, collecting resources. It was prestigious to have a large overseas colonies. There's another map, a little easier to see in the colors. The grays are independent nations, right? It's not all run by Turkey. And the idea was prevalent that this was natural. This was the white man's burden to go around the world and conquer and civilize native peoples and take their things and process them in factories and sell them back to help them modernize. Britain and France already had overseas empires. They were huge. Germany was new on the scene. They were late to unify as a nation and really felt she was being denied. And a fast way to rally people to support is to convince them they've all been wronged and that you and your country know the right way. And the Germans kind of got sold a bill of goods that they should really get more, and they got really gypped. These other countries did it to them, and they should fight them and look for an excuse to fight them. Europe in 1914, here we go. As you can see, some of these places don't even exist anymore. Okay, this is a German map. This is Austria-Hungary. This kingdom no longer exists. This is a bunch. This is Czech Republic. This is Slovakia. This is these are places that changed country names several times down here. Became Yugoslavia, and then Croatia, Montenegro. Montenegro's there right now. All kinds of different things. But you can see the map of Europe, and this map is going to change. We got colonial map of Africa. You can see the British are active in East Africa. You've got Germans down here. The French are running the show. If you're a fan of international football, of soccer, last men's World Cup, you could see that France's team was dotted with people that you would not right off the bat think of traditionally as French. 16 of the 23 members on that team, either they or their parents were born in what were French colonial possessions. Right? They came from all over the place. And so basically, if you want to have a great World Cup soccer team, you hope your nation was imperial at one time. Asia, imperialism as well. You see France in French Indochina. You've got England all here in purple. Japan was active in colonizing Asia and expanding, although Japan, like Germany, got a late start. You can see Germans are not even on here. Indonesia is run by the Dutch. You don't think of the Dutch as being horrible imperialists because they typically are pretty nice people, but they were a brutal control in Indonesia, how they subjugated the natives and dealt with any dissent. America, U.S. has an overseas empire. The Philippines were U.S. territory until 1933. And the U.S. took it by fighting Spain in a lopsided affair in the Spanish-American War in the early part of the 20th century. All right, left side of the line would be this blue stuff, imperialism and conflict. So France and Britain are making lots of money. They don't want to make room for Germany. Germany's angry. And knowing these things, in order to protect your colonies, you need to have a big military. You need to have a big navy. And this is creating a lot of tension. These big militaries, all this flexing, people are starting to get worried. They're starting to sweat each other. And what happens when you start to get sweated, you start to fear an attack, you start to look for someone that can help you fight. And so these big nations start to make alliances with each other. And basically it boiled down to two things. It boiled down to 3 big countries in the middle and 3 big countries on the outside of Europe. And things are going to come to a head with a crisis in the Balkans, in South Central Europe. It's always got to happen in South Central, doesn't it? But these alliances meant that an attack on one meant an attack on all. Here's a propaganda poster from the Mother Russia. You've got the France and British women looking towards Russia with her short arms, ready to lead them. You can see you got a battlefield behind. You got a dude on a horse back there. Millions of horses were used in the First World War, and then they died. Yeah, they're not great in the battlefield with guns, and especially with machine guns. No one's great on the battlefield with machine guns. No one's chances are good. But you can see this British, marked by the Navy right here. Okay, you got France over here with, I don't know, French chocolate. Yeah, European alliances. We've got Germany, Austria-Hungary, Italy in the middle. The triple alliance and the triple entente. You know, France was part of the Triple Entente because the word entente is French. You've got some neutral nations in the middle here. Switzerland's always kind of been protected because of the mountains that protect it. But Belgium, Luxembourg, and the Netherlands, they're the low countries, and man, Germany sweeps through them to get into France in 2 world wars, right? Second verse, same as the first. Militarism, left side of the line in blue. Is when the military is seen as a very important part of a country's strength. The military is glorified in these countries. And by that, we're talking military parades, and these are dudes in the government, and they're always dudes. wearing uniforms and zillions of medals, and by today's standard, that kind of tomfoolery is looked upon just being ridiculous. What do you need all this? What are you wearing? You know what I mean? But it was a good thing, and they really feared their neighbors were going to attack them in Europe, neighboring countries, that is, and they kept building up their militaries. And we'll look in our DBQ about the amount of dollars being spent, and it's just mind-boggling dollars for the time. What these countries were pouring into building these gigantic military. It was an arms race. That's why. There was a naval arms race. The British built a ship called the Dreadnought, which actually became the name used for battleships in general in the First World War. And Germans met them. They built this strength up. This will get covered in one of our videos. European countries had forced military service. If you were a young man, you had to join the military. And they had a huge standing army, meaning just hundreds of thousands of men in uniform. What are they there for? They're there to fight. Well, there's nothing to fight yet, but it's going to happen. And they're kind of ready. 1914, Europe is armed to the teeth with the largest military force the world would ever see. The numbers are crazy for the time. How many people? There's like one in 6 members. Like if you're a man I think it's in France, 1 in 6 was in the military. It's incredible. Well, really astounding numbers of French young men died in the First World War, which isn't surprising with so many of them in the military. You're on the front line, you're getting attacked by Germany. This is the HMS Dreadnought. This is a very modern-looking battleship. If you saw it today, you'd recognize it as a battleship with its big guns. You're not going to confuse it for a yacht parade. We have nationalism here as a piece of propaganda right here. Another one of our main causes, nationalism. We have this is a German piece of propaganda. You can tell by the Iron Cross. Okay, and it was an era of some ridiculous mustaches. We'll get into that more in the videos. And nationalism is a pejorative thing. It's a negative term. You don't say, "Man, I just want to be a nationalist." Generally speaking, nationalism is looked at as short-sighted, and this is why, because it's a belief that your nation is superior no matter what. Being patriotic and supporting your country is one thing, and being a nationalist, it's much more aggressive, it's confrontational, it's defensive when someone were to look to criticize a weakness in a country or your own country. Nationalists, it's not a good thing. Nationalism causes problems, like world wars. This gave people a lot of sense of national pride. And the interesting thing is people were nationalistic about countries that in Serbia's case, Serbia is going to be Austria-Hungary, the big kingdom, wants to take over Serbia. And the Serbs were terribly nationalistic about their country. And they wanted nothing to do with Austria. They didn't want Austria-Hungary to take them over and run their show. They wanted to be left alone. And they were in a place called the Balkans, which is southeastern Europe. And Russia gets drawn into this conflict, wants to protect their little Serbian brothers, the little Slavic brothers of Serbia. And Russia had no love for Austria-Hungary anyway. Serbia's feeling the squeeze. You can see Serbia right here. You got Central Power. Okay? So they're getting squeezed right there. And the spark. So imagine all these different things are like, and this is covered in the DBQ with a graphic with a picture, is that you've got all these different parts of a fire ready to go, and all it needs is a spark to set it off. And the spark that set it off was the assassination of the heir to the throne of Austria-Hungary, a gentleman named Franz Ferdinand, covered in one of the videos, visits Sarajevo, which is the capital of Bosnia-Herzegovina, which is right over here near Serbia. So these Serbian terrorist dudes traveled over to Bosnia-Herzegovina, to the city of Sarajevo, to assassinate the heir to the throne of Austria-Hungary. And these guys were all about their homeland. They believed in the Slavic heritage they shared with Russia, so they sought Russia's help, and they had a treaty with Russia. So if anyone attacked them, thinking that they might be attacked by Austria-Hungary, they could fight and assure their independence. and gain back some territory they'd previously lost to Austria-Hungary in the Balkan Wars, at the conclusion of the Balkan Wars a couple years prior. Well, the guy that kills the Archduke Franz Ferdinand was part of a secret organization, a nationalist group, kind of like an armed militia, to kind of put it in 2020 ideas. So he, along with 6 other guys, they get some bombs, they get some guns, they hide out and they wait for this guy to come visit this beautiful city, Sarajevo, and they kill him. They basically get lucky. This is covered in one of the videos, and this assassination attempt, which was this was successful, is used by Austria-Hungary to invade Serbia. Look, there's an attack. We were attacked. They killed our heir. We're going to get them, and to punish them, we're going to take over their country. Dominoes begin to fall. Austria-Hungary invades Serbia. Russia honors the agreement with Serbia, comes rushing to Serbia's defense. They declare war on Austria-Hungary. Germany backs its ally, Austria-Hungary, and declares war on Russia. Britain and France back their ally, Russia, declare war on Germany, Austria-Hungary. And just over a month after the assassination of Archduke Ferdinand, all of Europe is at war.